All right, so today we're jumping into one of the weirdest parts of the book of Ezekiel. I mean, right in the middle of this huge national crisis, the prophet just stops and he goes on this massive, angry tangent against Israel's neighbors. But what if I told you this detour isn't random at all? In fact, it's the key to understanding a much bigger cosmic story. So let's get right into it. Ezekiel has just dropped a bombshell. Jerusalem is under siege and it's going to fall. You'd think the story would, follow that, right? But nope. Instead, he takes this sharp left turn and spends the next 8 chapters laying down judgments on 7 other countries. So why? What is the point of this huge interruption right when things are getting intense? To really get our heads around this, we have to look at where this detour actually happens in the book's timeline. Because trust me, the placement is absolutely everything. Okay, check this out. In chapter 24, boom, the clock starts ticking. The siege begins. But we don't actually find out what happened to the city until all the way in chapter 33. That massive gap in between, chapters 25 to 32, is this prophetic detour. The author is hitting the pause button on purpose. It's not just to build suspense, it's to zoom out and show us that the fall of Jerusalem is just one piece of a much, much larger puzzle. Now, this kind of prophetic rant, it actually has a name. It belongs to a specific, ancient type of literature that you see all over the Old Testament prophets. They're called oracles against the nations. And think of these less as angry rants and more like cosmic legal notices. They're formal declarations that Yahweh, the God of Israel, is about to step onto the world stage and act as judge over all the nations, not just his own people. And get this idea wasn't totally out of left field in the ancient world. The Egyptians, for instance, had something called execration texts. They'd literally write an enemy's name on a clay pot or a figurine and then smash it, kind of like a state-sponsored voodoo doll, to magically bring about their downfall. The Israelite oracles, though, were fundamentally different. They weren't a magical ritual to make something happen. They were a divine news report of what God was already going to do. Big difference. Okay, so what exactly did these neighboring countries do to get on God's bad side? Let's take a look at the charge sheet from the very first chapter of this section, Ezekiel 25. This is where it gets really interesting, because you see that their crimes weren't just political, they were theological. Look at the accusations. Ammon wasn't just happy that Jerusalem fell, they gloated specifically over the destruction of God's sanctuary. Moab's big crime? Saying Judah was like all the other nations, which is basically a way of saying their God isn't special. These aren't just border squabbles. These are direct insults against Yahweh himself. So is this all just about payback? Divine score settling for some trash talk? Nope, not even close. The text is showing us that there are two much deeper things going on here. This is about establishing God's plan for the whole world. It really all boils down to 2 huge theological points that unlock this entire section and give us the bigger picture of what God is up to. Okay, first point, universal authority. By judging all these surrounding nations, God is planting a flag and declaring, I'm not just some local tribal God. I'm the God of the whole earth, and every single nation is accountable to me. Now, in the ancient world, wow, that was a truly radical claim to make. The second point is just as crucial. It's about preparing for restoration. Think about it. You have to clear the ground before you can build something new, right? You can't rebuild your house while your neighbors are standing around with torches ready to burn it down again. This judgment on the hostile nations is clearing the way for Israel's future return and restoration. And now we peel back the final layer, and this is where it goes from an ancient political spat to a full-blown cosmic drama. To really get what Ezekiel's doing, you have to understand the ancient worldview that's behind this whole conflict. This passage right here, from Deuteronomy 32, this is the secret decoder ring for this whole part of Ezekiel. It paints this incredible picture of the world, where God, the Most High, divided up all the nations and put them under the authority of these lesser divine beings, these sons of God. But it says he kept one nation for himself, his own personal inheritance, Israel. So here's the backstory according to this worldview. After the whole mass of the Tower of Babel, God essentially disinherits the nations of the world. He hands them over to be governed by these other divine beings. And then he starts over. He creates a brand new people, Israel, to be his personal portion on earth. This frames the whole conflict, not as a war between countries, but as a cosmic family feud over inheritance, with the other nations and their divine rulers jealous of Israel's special status. And believe it or not, there is one single, powerful Hebrew word in Ezekiel 25 that connects this local conflict on the ground directly to that massive cosmic story. They acted revengefully. Now, that might seem like a simple description, but the original Hebrew word being used here is absolutely loaded with theological meaning. It is not a random choice. The word is nakam. This isn't your everyday run-of-the-mill word for revenge. No, this has a very specific flavor. It's the word used for score settling within a family. Think Cain and Abel. Think disinherited brothers attacking the chosen heir. It's that kind of deep, bitter, familial feud. So first, we see Ezekiel using this exact word, nakam, to describe the crime of Edom. He's framing their attack as the spiteful act of a disinherited brother. But then, and this is the kicker, you flip back to Deuteronomy 32, that same chapter that laid out the whole cosmic family drama, and what do you find? The exact same word. It says God promises that one day he will take nakam on his adversaries, those lesser divine beings ruling the nations. And that, my friends, is the mic drop. By using the very same, very specific word, Ezekiel is making a huge claim. He's signaling to his readers, hey, remember that ancient promise about God settling the cosmic family feud? Well, it's starting, right here, right now. This isn't just history. This is the beginning of God's project to take back his world. And that's the ultimate takeaway. What looks like a puzzling, angry detour in the middle of a book turns out to be the opening shot in a cosmic war of reclamation. It's a story that completely reframes history, suggesting that the fate of these small, ancient nations is tied to the ultimate destiny of heaven and earth.